All right, guys, welcome back to the Shadow Mark podcast. We are not live tonight, but we are in charge. We'll be posting this here probably tomorrow. I'm really excited about it. We're like 20 episodes in. We still don't have a cool intro video like everyone else, but we're working on it. And by working on it, I mean I'm still trying to learn how to use the interweb and the Facebook and stuff and, a computer. So I got that going for me. That's pretty great. I'm Derek Thompson. With me, as always, is Mr. TJ Davidson.
What's up?
And joining us tonight from Hardhead Vets and several other organizations, which we will talk about here a little bit later, is Chris Naganumas. And we're really excited to have you, man. I can't tell you what it means to us for you to take your time out and come talk to us. And just getting to talk to you here a little bit before the show, we've learned a lot already. And I'm really excited to just dive into this and actually talk about it. So let's just start this out. Have you introduce yourself? Have you kind of tell us what your background is, what service was like for you and all that stuff. And then we'll delve into everything you're doing now.
Sure. Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for having me. I know your guys' time's important as well. And I'm looking forward to speaking with you. So, my name's Chris Naganumas. I'm the community manager for Hardhead Veterans currently. And then I work and run Project Leaflet doing combat photography and gear acquisition throughout Ukraine predominantly.
That's just amazing. So you're a veteran?
I am, yeah. So I'm 37 years old. I was in the United States Army. I was predominantly most of my career was spent with the Stryker Brigades from 2003 through 2008, and I deployed to Mosul, Iraq in 2004.
That's amazing.
11 Bravo, right?
Yeah.
I am, yeah, 11 Bravo.
Man, just amazing
So
for our
for
civilian. Yeah, I was going to say for our civilian friends that don't know.
Yeah, infantry for those that don't know.
We'll just cover all those bases for everyone because that's what we're here for. We're the informational, if nothing else. Well, we're never informational usually, but tonight's going to be different. We're going to make this one a good one. So you did. You said you went to Iraq. What was that like? What was that kind of experience like for you?
For me, it was kind of an eye-opening experience. When I went, I had just turned. I was 18 years old and I just turned 19 in Mosul. And kind of like fast forward, or I guess flashback, when I joined, I was, I did the delayed entry program. So I just turned 18. And then I went from November 7th to March 28th was when I graduated. March 29th, I got to my unit. And then October, I was in Iraq. So it was like less than a year cycle from, hey, I'll sign the paperwork to, yep, I'm feet in sand in some other country. And it was, but at that time, the op tempo was so fast. And so things were going so quickly. And I think the military branches needed that kind of speed. And it was definitely an experience to where I was such a young individual of like, holy crap, like here I am, like what is going on? And I really kind of leaned on a lot of the older guys that had been in the unit to kind of learn and understand what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's just hard as like an 18-year-old, 19-year-old. I mean, you're a kid. I mean, and people don't really think about that because we're sending these young men off to war, and you don't think about the fact that we're still young. You're still trying to learn everything and figure life out, let alone go and deal with this. And I think that's kind of the blessing that we have in what we've done is that we have gotten to experience some of these outside things. We're not stuck in the same rut, being raised in America and never getting to experience what it's like outside our own world.
Sure.
But so as you're 18, 19, you're sitting there and you're kind of relying on these older guys. What'd you learn while you were there? You know what I mean?
I also wasn't a good kid. So I think the Army kind of helped kind of straighten me out a little bit. And when I was put around a few of the individuals like Sergeant Santana and like Sergeant Meyer, to kind of throw out a few names, they were very, and Lieutenant Ho, like a lot of these guys were like father figures to me, I think, when I was just kind of like not really, I'd gotten arrested in the same week and like I was like getting kicked out of schools and not just really a problematic kid with not a great, I guess, direction or focus. And so when I got around these individuals, they were like very driven, very kind of focused and knew what the end game was, maybe not knowing what was going to happen through this deployment because it was so early on and a lot of us didn't know yet or didn't have a lot of experience through multiple deployments yet. But they had been in, I think, for a little bit longer, where there was like SOPs and standards and structure, and that really kind of set me on a good path. And getting into Iraq, the first when you say like what was the experience, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is like one of the first missions going into town center, and I was a saw gunner at the time, and I remember ramp dropping, and I stepped out, and we were supposed to like hold a sector, and this Iraqi was walking towards me, and I pointed up my saw at him, and I was like, hey, Eshta, like move. And all he did was look at me, and like he just stopped, did a 90-degree angle, walked like 10 feet, a 90-degree angle, and just kept on walking right by me. And I was like, holy crap, none of these guys care. like, and I was like, okay, well, what the hell is going on? So that really was a confusing experience for me as well.
I'm sure, man. But you sit there, and that goes back to the life's different overseas. And we're going to dive into that a little bit more later, because we're going to talk about your current service and everything that you've been doing lately. But you have those experiences, and I forgot to ask you, I usually ask this, what made you join the military? What was like that moment like for you that you were like, yeah, you know what, I want to go get shot at?
Oh, it's simple. I came downstairs, and I turned on the TV, and I watched the second plane impact a tower. And I had never experienced anything like that in my entire life. And I was a young kid at the time. I really didn't understand like what I was watching. I thought it was like an action movie at first. And so I started like yelling for my dad, like Dad, come down, Dad. And we started experiencing everything that was going on, and kind of like really kind of absorbing all of it. And at the time, I think I was like 16-ish. And again, I wasn't a great kid, right? So I was kind of looking for this path. And I think the timing was kind of right, where it was like an aha moment, right? Like it was like, oh shit, like maybe this is what I'm meant to do. Like maybe this is like my emotional connection to something that's bigger than myself. And that really kind of brought me to, I guess, the recruiters. And at the time I lived in Los Angeles, and so there was like big recruiting stations where all 5 or all 4 branches would be involved. And I went and spoke to all of them, and ended up falling on the Army.
That's amazing, man. I love hearing that. And it's something that this generation hasn't really had to deal with. They haven't had that like moment, thankfully, where something like that happened.
I think that's like for a lot of us, though, that was like how that worked for a lot of us joining the military.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think a lot of us joined for those reasons.
Yeah, and like I said, like this generation hadn't had anything like that, thankfully. But then again, like imagine how we were as a country back when, like the day after that happened, compared to where we're at now.
We were very patriotic and connected. I mean, I would say for even almost like the year after that happened, or a year and a half after that, you saw flags everywhere. But I think also, man, the generations have changed, and people have changed, and the way that kids today see, I would say, service, and the way that some of those branches have treated us over the last like decade also has not helped their recruitment standard. So it's,
I agree.
They're dealing with a lot of issues right now, which is unfortunate, because service is such a good thing in my eyes, and it was such a great thing for my life, and helping me like with my college and schooling and structure and being a man, and like putting me on the right path. And man, if it wasn't for that, I don't know where I would be. And so it's kind of fortunate to see like the bastardization I hear sometimes in people's voices when they talk about service.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of that, I don't know, it's just from kind of the vets I've talked to. I mean, it seems like it comes from a lot of like the bastardization of it, in my eyes, comes from post-service. And it's not so much the service. I mean, obviously we dealt with shit in the service, but most of it seems like comes like they're like, well, the VA sucks. We have this going on. They're not taking care of me anymore. And it's like, well, it's not the branch's job to take care of you, once you get out. Like the government probably should, but it ain't the Marine Corps' fault. It's not the Army's fault.
Right.
Like it's not their job after we get out to baby us and step us through life.
No, I agree with that 100%. And, that's also like when you tell people like, well, you talk with certain peoples and they say, well, the service time sucked, but did you ever take advantage of some of the things that you had open to you or offered to you while you were in service?
Right.
And usually that answer is no, or they just were not like they had Article 15s or something was wrong. It's interesting to hear that when I think service can be such a good positive thing on an aspect to other individuals.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, just looking back at a lot of the guys I met, I had such a great time just because of the people I met. So I mean, even if you ignore the service and the things that we did, yeah, sometimes it sucked, but you're a young kid. You didn't know what the real world was. Even like I can tell you right now, I'd rather deal with that crap than half the crap I deal with now. Like, it's not. I think it's that first step into the real world, and you're just going, "Oh shit." You know what I mean? And we tried to skate. We tried to skate through. We tried to skate through it. That's what we tried to do. That's why they were like, we had like the skating awards and stupid shit like that in the military. Because you had those guys that were just trying to make it through like they were still in high school. And you can't do that. Like you just can't.
Yeah, you'll get peered out pretty quickly.
It doesn't take much, and we kind of looking back. That's something I'm just thinking about now. I took advantage of it, and I took it for granted what I had, and it really was a great thing for me too, where I was learning how to deal with life and how to grow up and kind of find some of the things that I need in life. Like that manhood and some of the figures and role models I needed. I got a lot of those as well in the service. So I mean, it is a great thing, and I think you're right. I think it is being kind of, well, shit on. I mean, for lack of a better term.
A lot of it too, I feel like isn't just like the veterans talking about how shitty the service was. It's everybody. Like I kind of feel like it's a new generation of like what the Vietnams had hippies or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
kind of something similar to that. Where everybody just like, no man, like you're just over there murdering people. And that's not the case.
I've heard it. Trust me, I lived up in Boulder for a little while.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's an interesting vibe as well. And like, I lived in Los Angeles and I was stationed up in Washington around the Tacoma area. So yeah, you definitely hear it. And it's like the same thing with like law enforcement, right? Like ACAB, like every cop's a bastard. But
yeah.
There's individuals doing child trafficking, like interdiction, and like there's these departments that are doing very good things inside of law enforcement that you can't really necessarily say that because you don't see their action. But I think the generation nowadays is so easy to say, well, if you don't accept my opinion and my feelings, then fuck you, and
Right.
you're this, that, and that, and it's very it's interesting to me when I hear a lot of it.
I feel like they've had their life so easy that now they're just looking for something to be oppressed over. Like
the thing now is cancel culture, right? That's kind of the thing now.
Yeah, I guess you would call. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, cancel
culture, woke culture. I don't know what you call it, but where it's like you don't agree with me, you're done. And we cut
there's a lot of that.
I'm just like, I don't get it, and like I try to watch a lot of stand up, and when you see those guys get cut off, you're just like, they're making jokes, man. Like
that's their job.
Fucking chill out.
Well, I think people also forget that it's like if you look at the Army, there's over 300 jobs in the Army. You don't have to be combat arms.
No.
You can enlist to go work on air condition units if that's what you want to do in your enlistment. You can do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just, I don't know. It's very interesting to me.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. It is. It's crazy that everyone's just like, they do. They're like, we're going to label this entire group, and that's what we're going to do. And they did that, like you said, they did it with cops. They've done it with the military, and they do it with a lot of groups. And you're sitting there like, all right, let's just take a step back. You've got like one bad guy out of a million and you guys are going to sit there and mislabel them. You know, we shouldn't be doing that. We can't be doing that.
It's exactly the same thing, reverse though, because they're saying that, well, you just don't understand because you're ignorant. You know, you don't know what it's like. And I'm like, no, that's exactly what you're fucking doing right now. You don't understand. You're the ignorant one.
Well, that's the opinion-based thing, right? It's you know, people think their opinion needs to matter, but truthfully, the only person that your opinion matters to is yourself.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's why it's an opinion. But it's that I guess this generation thinks that should be more important to them or to everyone else that doesn't believe in their opinion or should, I guess, align with their views of their opinion. And if you don't, then it becomes something that is a problem.
Right.
Well, we're here. So how do you think we fix that? How do you think we change that? I mean, obviously we have to raise our kids different, but
yeah, I think that's definitely a big thing. You know, the way that you are involved with your kids, and I think the views that you teach them. You know, it's very easy for us to also be like, hey, you know, throw your kids into school and not see them besides the morning and the end of the day when they wake up and then go to bed, and you're not truly involved in their livelihood. You know, I have a child right now that's coming up on 15 months, and like it's something that's very I think about daily, where it's like, okay, well, if I give this child to another individual for 6 to 8 hours a day, like what does that impact on their livelihood and their outcome? So, you know, I think that's a huge aspect of getting back into the original, or I guess, views of American and being proud of being American and being proud of what this country is about and the views of this country. You know, I think that's a big thing. And I don't know how else to change it. You know, it's obviously something that's, I think, been a slow burn for a while, and now we're here where it's getting to the bottom of that candle, and it seems to be quite a large issue.
Well, you kind of hinted towards something I was just thinking about too with it. Education. I mean, we've got these kids are at school most of the time. I mean, the amount of time they spend with parents anymore it seems like it's pretty minimal, because, you know, and I've talked about it before, and I got a lot of shit about it. And you know, it was kind of it was screwed up to say, but you know, they're like, what do you think the downfall of the country was? And I was like, women working. And it was a joke, but when I sat there and thought about it, they asked for an explanation. I was like, look, it's just a joke, man. But what I am saying is, at least when in like the 40s and 30s and stuff, before
you're talking about
World War II, yeah, we had somebody at home with the kids. Now we've got both parents working jobs, because I mean, you have to have a 2-income household. I mean, there's no way around it, and it's a good thing. And I think women deserve the right to, you know, be a part of everything that men are, and vice versa. And I think there's equality in that, and I love that. I'm happy for it. But I like the idea of having someone home with the kid. You know, somebody that, you know, you made these kids, you have a responsibility to them. And it seems like so whether it's the mom or dad that's at home, I think there needs to be at least one person to actually help raise the kids. And I think we've lost that. And I do think that's a problem. You know what I mean? But back to my original thought, which was the education, we've also leaned towards education, especially in college, has become very opinionated, in my opinion. And they're teaching that as opposed to teaching the facts and the things that they're supposed to be teaching. And I was witness to that with my ex-wife, and well, she was in college, and you know, I was just like, what happened to teaching like facts and history and knowledge, actual knowledge? When did it become this social experiment of just spitting out opinions and telling kids that they're going to get graded off whether their opinion's right or wrong?
I think school's changed a lot, man. It's more more for money management and making and a debt farm, I think, than it is for, you know, teaching and informing. It's just not really, it's not really that big of a focus anymore. And I think that's, you know, to your point where you're saying there's not 2 people at the house or around your child that much. It is true. You know, you do need. It's very hard to live in most areas now with just a 1 income. You know, it's not, housing's not cheap. You know, food's not cheap. Gas is not cheap. Taxation is up. You know, all these things cost money. And if one person stays at home, it's harder depending on where you live, and especially if you don't live in the middle of nowhere. Me and my wife, we make a lot of sacrifices where she works 100% at home, remote, and I try and work in a hybrid position where I'm driving across the country multiple times so that we can kind of balance off of each other and workloads, and to make sure that we're spending time a lot of the time with our child, and like feeding him lunch and feeding him food and being interactive, because I think those things will be super important, the way that he interacts with us as he gets older too.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I don't know. I think that's a great question. And I think just, as you get older and as the countries get older and as we grow as humanity, technology gets better and we start relying on that more. And it's easy to become more reliant on that than it is with your human, connectivity.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. So we've beat that dead horse. We've done that. So now let's go into how you get involved with Hardhead Veterans. And I just stuttered there, so good for me. But how do you get involved with that? What do you guys do?
Yeah, so I've been with Hardhead Veterans for about, coming up on 6-7 months now. I had been working in the defense industry for, I want to say, maybe 10 to 11 years at this point, in kind of different roles, from professional shooting and doing 3-gun and USPSA, to running my own business, doing manufacturing of Glock barrels. And I was looking for another role after I had just kind of stepped out of the defense industry for a little bit and worked in another area. And I found the position on LinkedIn, and a buddy was kind of telling me to, like, hey man, like this might be kind of like in your realm of like the type of guys that you like working with and the type of company that you want to be around. And I put in a position and met them at SHOT Show, and 6 months later, I've been just kind of full blown gas, full pedal down, and pushing ballistic helmets of what we do as a company, which is U.S. manufacturing and overseas pressing of ballistic helmets.
Awesome. I love that. So you've got that going and everything there. Sorry, email just popped up on my screen. I was like, what? Scared the shit out of me, to be right honest with you. So you've been doing that for about 6-7 months. What's that been like for you? What do you do for the company? How do you enjoy it?
So I'm the community and events manager for Hardhead Veterans. What I predominantly do is I manage the pro staff, our affiliates. I manage a lot of our social media. I'm communicating with a lot of the individuals that comment on there and respond with there. I manage our private Facebook page, and host a lot of community events like hiking days, and we're putting on night vision putt golf, and we're doing a big.
That's badass, bro.
Yeah, man. Come on out, play some golf with nods on. Like, that's gonna be awesome. And,
I need to do that. Where's that at?
We're hoping to do that one down in Dallas. That's where that will be, kind of around that area.
I have to make a trip down to Dallas, man.
And
2 hours from here.
Yeah, I just try and do fun things and activate, really trying to engage the community and talk with people and be super positive. And, we've got 7,000 individuals in a private Facebook page, and coming up on 200,000 on our Facebook, and we've got our Instagrams and all that. So we have a lot of people, and, we can impact, I think, a lot of the community through not only just, hey, what do we do as a company, but I try and make sure that, on certain days I'll interact and put posts in talking about mental health, and just checking on my guys that are inside of the group and being like, hey, if no one's told you today, like, I'm proud of you. And I think sometimes, gun companies can, or defense companies can just be very, very by the book. And I think HHV is a little bit different in that regard, and why I enjoy working there so much. It's a small team, predominantly veteran ran, and we all kind of are I guess on the other side of the fence now. And so we really think a lot about guys that, are wearing our gear, and that's important to us.
I love that, man. That's amazing to hear that you guys, it seems like you guys care, and that's pretty rare. It seems like these days. Everything else is like, let's push profit. Let's just get our buck, and do what we have to. But it seems like you guys are doing a lot, and it seems like it's cool that you guys are trying to connect with the community. And I love that, man. Like, that's just amazing.
I think you have to. And, we've had a lot of negativity in the past to where we use, like, for example, with our Gen 2 helmet, we use US material and then we send that over to China and press it. That comes back over here, and then we send that into NIJ and we test. That helmet has been our bread and butter. There's 1,000 of those in Ukraine today. We push 1,000 plus of those probably monthly to the civilian community, not including the LEO. And that helmet has gotten us to the ability to actually bring US presses, bring our own cutting material, bring our own Honeywell material inside of our own shop inside of Sweetwater, Texas, bring our own painter facility, our own assembly shop. And now we are able to offer a US helmet. And so, like,
How cool
hey,
is
like,
that?
that's what, the dream is, right? Like, you start from where you can be, what you can afford, still provide a great product. I've got a helmet on my desk with our overseas helmet that's $560. And there's a gentleman named One Jedi in Ukraine that took an ATGM, an anti-tank guided missile, exploded a meter over his head, and the helmet kept him alive. And that's people talk shit about that helmet, but there's a fuckload of Ukrainians right now that are very happy to have that helmet on their head. And so we're also, in my opinion, one of the most open when it comes to testing. All of our product has testing results right at the bottom of the page. Our YouTube's talking about what is backface deformation. Why should you be worried about it? Why is it important to check? And we produce one of the better padding systems on the entire market. That's a 3D printed material that no one's ever seen, that really helps with backface deformation, structural integrity of the helmet, reducing blunt impact by 66%. That stuff is important. That's what's the most important when it comes to troops, because if they take an impact, TBI, man, is what fucks us up. If we stay alive through this, it's about, can I still remember things 10 years down the line? What is blast mitigation? I don't want to have headaches or like aurora blindness. All these things all that has happened because of TBI.
Well, I can attest to y'all being open too, because that's what made me buy the HHV helmet over some of the other ones that I was looking at. Because I was trying to do the research and see, kind of the best bang for your buck kind of deal. And it's hard to find all that information for a lot of other companies. Like, they'll tell you, it's like level 3A or whatever their rating is, but that's about it. I mean, there's a couple other things they say, but there's a whole lot more information about the HHV helmets whenever I was looking. So something I kind of want to like give a little bit of information on or touch a little bit on is that I think people kind of get a misunderstanding. Sorry, my dog's like killing a stuffed animal.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
That's fine. I have toads in my little beer box over here.
He's over there just like acting like crazy right now.
We love dogs here, man. We love dogs.
So, but like, when it comes to chest plates, the NIJ certifies chest plates, and they'll be like, hey, this does this hits that. But when it comes to helmets, that's not the way the game works. And the NIJ will give, like, I guess the kind of the easiest way I can give it to an explanation is, imagine like a PT test in the military where it's like, hey, 300 is your max, right? That's a perfect score. 264 is passing. Now you can go above 300, but you can go below 300 and still meet passing, right?
Right.
So when you have a ballistic helmet company, they have a guideline of what a national standard is, or a parameter that they have to meet. How well they want to meet that, and how well they want to bypass that, and how well they want to hit those parameters is really up to the manufacturer. And so it's kind of up to you to then go, insert company A, B, C, D, whatever, to go to that company, look at those ratings, look at what their results were, and make a decision upon what is the best for you. Is it reduction of weight? Is it reduction of backface deformation? Do you want a lower number? Those are things that you're going to have to do to inform yourself. And unfortunately, every company is going to have a different number.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, man, they're going to take it. And if they're not going to be held to a certain standard, they're going to try to hit the low end of that and try to do it cheap as they can, it seems like. And it seems like you guys are just after doing it the best you can. And I love that.
And I guess I should kind of like give a little bit of clarity, but like backface deformation is when, if you take an impact to the helmet It's the amount of distance that the inside of the helmet's going to move, right?
Right.
So like that bulge that comes towards your head. So, a helmet could pass at 24 millimeters of distance coming into it, or it could pass at 6 millimeters. And so how that company kind of want to reach that limit is up to them. And, for me, I would like to see the lowest number on there, as physically possible.
Yeah.
So
it seems like you got less risk for a TBI then.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And especially like, that's why, like, if you look at like our micro lattice system is like a pad system that, no one's really kind of messed around with, which is our 3D printed material. This is something that helps really spread a lot of energy around the head a lot better, because where a pad may take one type of impact and absorb a lot of that energy into the pad, this spreads it through. It's kind of, it's like all one universal, I guess, structure that spreads the energy through it all. And 3D printing is an amazing system now.
It really is. I mean, there's so much technology out there, and I love that you guys are looking at, every aspect that you can. Because you can prevent like coup, counter coup injuries, stuff like that. Obviously blunt force injury. It's just an amazing thing. My mom's really big into brain injury. She's got a brain injury, and you sit there and you look at that, and people don't realize that they're very easy to get, and it is a very damaging thing to a lot of the population. And we're seeing the results of that, like you had said before the show, and we'll talk about that again a little bit more once we start talking about what you're doing with combat photography and everything there. But you guys, it just seems like you're doing an outstanding job, and it's amazing. I love seeing it.
I've enjoyed working for them. I've worked for a lot of other, or I guess I've done a lot of other things in the industry, but I think it feels different from, when I used to like manufacture barrels or sell other parts, that this is something that's going on someone's head, right? And so if you know that you can step up to bat and help them and take care of them, and you see these actual combat saves, and we get these products back, and it's like physically on our shelves, and I can touch it and feel it and talk with these and interview these people. I think for me, it's a different emotional drive when I work with this company and what we're doing. I think it's important
because you're seeing it firsthand. That's awesome. Love that.
Yeah, firsthand. Like, we have a warranty. It's it's called I think it's a battle protection plan, and that's if any of the product that we wear, if it saves your life, whether you're law enforcement or military, and if you bring that product back to us, we'll exchange it for free. And it's predominantly because we want to tell your story. We want to talk with you and like put it in our museum and be proud of what we do, and then also be able to give you a brand new product because we were able to step up to bat for you.
Yeah, and they earned it.
100%.
Be honest.
Yeah.
If you're sitting there going through that,
you're still here alive and talking,
you earned it, man.
You earned it.
Yeah, you earned it.
Well, I feel like doing something like that and working for a company like you do is kind of important for veterans also, because you still are doing something and you're helping people. You're not just selling them products that they want because they want to look cool on the range. Like especially when you talk to these people whose lives that your products have saved, like that means something. It gives you a little bit of pride in what you do,
Yeah, and I think with HHV, Hardheads they're a smaller company than like, let's say, OpsCorps or another large organization, right? We're not a big multi-$100 million organization. We're like 20 dudes that are building helmets inside of a warehouse, doing it to our best ability. And I think something that I kind of have pride with HHV is that we can kind of look at a helmet, and we're not doing these big governmental or I guess like we're not selling to the RSRs and wholesaling, right? So a majority of our sales are coming direct from consumer, and that's really our bread and butter. So the pricing on our helmets is able to stay down a lot lower because we don't have to have wholesale pricing and all that. But that also allows us, because we are such a small company, that we can build to our parameter of what we see fit. And when you build helmets, there's different ways to kind of structure a helmet, and each company kind of has their own SOPs, and no one's going to tell you, hey, this is how you do it. You kind of have to go out there and figure it out. But then when it gets tested, that's where you can kind of see like, okay, what are our numbers and how do we fix things and where do we want to be? And how do you make a good helmet by either being heavier or lighter? And do you want more layers? Do you want less layers? What material are we putting into it? And I think when you're a smaller company, sometimes, I think our ownership Kit he's prior Swick. And so, I think a lot of the guys here that work at HHV that are former infantry or former military and or law enforcement or whatnot, they want to know what those numbers are now that we've kind of are on the other side of the fence. Yeah. And when I was given a Mitch helmet or another helmet, I don't know anything, and it's just kind of like, this works, this is great. And so, but I think now we're civilians, and now we're building things, and so now we can look at numbers and we can be open and public about it. And when you're veterans, you want to see the best for your guys that you used to be. And I think that's kind of something that's really a big focus for us here, where, we can build something I think that's better to go onto their head or offer a better padding that can go into anyone's helmets. And I think that's important.
Sorry, I'm just looking in the background there right now. I thought you stole my dog for a minute.
Oh, Else? Yeah, she's my blind one. Oh, yeah. Yeah. She looks exactly like her.
It's like, my dog's still up here? Had to check. My bad. He's just my buddy. Hilarious. Buzz, sitting there, and I was like, hey, son of a bitch, he's got the same dog as me. Well, how about that? Mine's probably a little bigger, but, But no, he's a husky Malamute. He's massive. I don't know what to do with him.
Yeah. But
no, so you had a lot of great information there, and we can kind of now dive into you're doing a lot for hardhead veterans, and you're doing your thing there. Now you've got this combat photography stuff going, and you've been to the Ukraine. You're doing all this stuff around the world and globe. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that's been I'd say that I've been doing that for now about 14 months. Well, I guess since I guess February of 2022 is really when it all kind of kicked off a lot heavier for me. And that started out as just kind of reporting, I guess, more on what was happening. And right. I knew I have a friend that runs a great page. His name's Nick Laidlaw. He runs Battle and Beers, and he does a lot of capturing of stories that him and I share a lot of contacts, and we capture one-on-one documentation and stories of warfighters. And we used to joke, or it was kind of sad, but like we talk about it now, where it was like back in February, we knew so many guys that like where phones and signal apps were like taking off of like, it's fucking happening. It's going on right now. And, it started out with just talking about what was going on, bringing exposure to it. And I started getting a lot of, really a lot of traction. And it was all just being posted on my personal Instagram because I found it like interest in it because I'm kind of like a history war nerd. And so I thought, well, shit, I probably should put this somewhere. Like my wife's getting pissed that I'm just talking about Ukraine. And so that kind of rolled into actually getting to know people inside of units because I was talking about history and talking about things that were going on, and guys would reach out and be like, hey, like that's my unit. Or, hey, like that's me on camera. And I would start documenting those stories. And then I would start talking with them about, well, hey, like what is your, do you need anything that I can help with or help connect dots with? And that kind of started really, that really kind of started it. That was like all of a sudden, I guess when you have a blank piece of, art and then you throw the first brush stroke, that was kind of it for me. And then I came up with the name Project Leaflet and started directing it somewhere to kind of give it purpose. And that rolled into growing like month by month by month, gaining more connections and working with more teams, and started working with a lot of good organizations that I still work with today, you know, in what we call the network, with Project Siren and Task Force 31 and, you know, GSMSG and a lot of these organizations that are doing really good volunteer or organized work inside of Ukraine to help the overall, I guess, focus of winning and training the end user.
So when did you decide that you wanted to go over there? Like, what made you decide to go and be a part of it and you know, just report on it?
You know, honestly, I think for me was when I started to get to know Nick a lot better, and Nick over at Battles and Beers, and we had kind of like started to invest ourselves pretty heavily into talking with the guys and doing gear acquisition, and it got to the point where I think Nick and I were talking, and we just said, you know what, we have to go over there. And the reason for that was because Mariupol was under siege, and we were actually talking with a lot of individuals that were in Azov and inside of that location that were getting bombarded. And at the time, Nick was passing a lot of letters and stories back and forth between the war fighters that were in Mariupol and the wives that were on the outside, because there was no way of communicating between the two. So Nick ended up being a lot of those communication, and we started really kind of documenting a lot of those stories. And I think it became an emotional thing for both of us, where it was like, well, you know, at this point, we're so invested in either training or gear acquisition or just talking with these guys and documenting what is happening on a day-to-day experience from their experience on the ground, that if we don't go over there and do this and get to know them and actually meet them face to face, then who the fuck are we? Meaning,
Right.
like, what changes us from any other Instagram or Facebook page or anyone that just reports on this if I don't spend the time to get to know them and go to country and do this? Like, because otherwise I'm just taking advantage of them, is kind of the way that I felt.
Yeah, I feel that. I say that all the time. It's, you know, talk about it, you're gonna be about it, you know?
Yeah, man. And like, you know, these guys are fucking Bakhmut had a 4-hour lifespan expectation, you know, and like
Shit.
that is astronomically insane to me.
That's wild.
So if I'm asking for someone to tell me their story and experiences of doing that and walking into that type of area, then I should have enough balls to get on a fucking bus and go from Warsaw to Kiev and start interviewing these guys and talk with them. Because otherwise then there's no respect and I just don't feel like it was the same. And that was a huge, I think, push for me to kind of like go out and do that.
Yeah, I feel that.
Sorry.
That's what. Yeah, go ahead. Having poochie problems.
God, he's dealing with it. I'm dealing with it. It must be the dogs communicating via psych, whatever. I sat there and you were having dog problems, and my dog started just. I
know. Had to put him away. So yeah, that was a big reason why I think it was important to go out there.
Yeah, I mean, and that gives you like an actual real perspective of what's actually happening and the way it's going down. Because I don't know if we have touched on this a whole lot yet, but before we started recording, we were just talking about how people really don't understand. Like, yeah, they might have heard about some things, but without being there and seeing it, you really have no fucking clue what you're talking about, you know?
It is such a different God, it's such a different war. You know, yeah, if you're not spending the time with these people and actually understanding like the sound and what this war is like, it's hard to explain it to people. Right. You know, I was in the height of Iraq, and the one thing that still sticks out to me when I went towards the east side of Ukraine when we did a couple of interviews was like rhythmic artillery. I mean, I had never heard like rhythmic, like constant firing of artillery before, and bombardment and like rockets going off. And that was I guess that was something that I was like, oh fuck, like I've heard it in like World War I and World War II movies, but this is a constant thing. And that was kind of something that was a bit of a, I guess it was such a different emotional feeling when you hear it out that way, because it's something that most of the world will never experience.
Well, I'm sure like having being deployed before in, a different part of the world in your own combat situations, that I'm assuming you probably had like a idea of what you thought might be going on and what it might be like, but again, you get there and it's something you've never experienced before. So even for someone who has been in similar situations, it was still a lot different than what you thought it was.
Yeah. I knew, I know war, and like I've experienced war and death and been around that. So I kind of had somewhat of a mentality of what there was like. And obviously, I had been reporting on it daily for months at this point. And not just on like, oh, look at this explosion. Like, it was like, hey, this is the equipment that's going into country. This is the specs of it.
Yeah.
I was like, this is troop movement. This is the way that these battalions are being built. Like, this is the war that's going on over there. This is drone technology. And now I've even done in-person presentations to the United States Marine Corps about drone technology.
No kidding.
And so this stuff was like, it was very much in the back of my head that it's like that, this is a dangerous area. It's it's you can very much listen to your guys, don't just freely walk through doorways and like step wherever the fuck you want. It's a whole different war than what we are used to. And I think you have to be respectful of that.
Yeah, I think you always have to be respectful of everything like that. I mean, you can't look at everything as the same. And, I think hopefully we don't have to worry about it right now, but I think that's something that we're going to have to deal with in the future. And hopefully, the country learns from it. We can't sit there and look at these other instances and not learn anything from it. So hopefully we can take something from everything that's going on, adapt to it a little bit, if you will, and move forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of what we do, or what I do with Project Leaflet is I hopefully take a lot of that technology and I bring it back into presentations, and I bring that to our military right now. So if a unit wants me to come out and do a talk with them on what is going on in Ukraine with drone and other technology, I'll do that for them. Because I think that tech is moving so fast, and you're seeing it not only on the Ukrainian side, Taiwan's preparing for it. All these other organizations like Turkey are building entire drone aircraft carriers. So this isn't going away, and the technology is just going to continue to advance. We have to pay attention to it.
Right. So you've been over there, you've been doing your thing, and you've been learning all this information. I got to bring this up because it's funny as crap to me. How do you end up on a hit list?
Yeah. So weird story. So, there's an organization called Track and Merc, and they're on Telegram. They were on Twitter and a few other pages. And this war is very heavy social media, right? And there's fake footage on both sides and propaganda all over the place. And what Track and Merc does is they are a pro-Russian organization that tracks pretty much any Westerner that goes into Ukraine. And then what they do is they try and track down their home addresses, their personal information, and then they make all these crazy stories about them, and really kind of just make this over like just a wild experience of what this person is doing in Ukraine, whether it's true or not. One of my friends, I don't need to say her name, but she does work with a medical organization, and she was an ambulance driver, and she got targeted by Track and Merc, and they said that she was chopping up bodies and transferring organs all over the place. And so, they do these outlandish stories. And but
so there's a market for it.
100%, right? Yeah, hey man, like you never know. And so, But so I ended up getting targeted because I did some I do training every now and then, and I had an opportunity to come over and do some training with Task Force 31 in Ukraine and speak with a bunch of Ukrainians that were heading to Bakhmut. And so at the same time that I was entering into Ukraine and getting my press pass and like getting organized in Kiev and like getting established and starting to train troops, they were grabbing these photos that were kind of going on social media in some place and connecting the dots that this was me coming into Ukraine. This was me training it. I was wearing forward observation hats or fog hats at the time. And I still am a big fan of those guys and their work. And so, at the same time, back in those days, the Kremlin was saying, Fog is like they're a pro-military, like PMC company, and they're training all these guys. And so it was like perfect timing of all this stuff was happening. And then there was a Ukrainian team that I think shot a bunch of Russians, and that guy, when they were surrendering, and one of them jumped out with an AK and started shooting at the Ukrainians. And so the Ukrainians shot back, and unfortunately, one of those guys had a beard and looked like me. And so it was like the circle had completed at that point, right? It was like Chris enters Ukraine, Chris trains. Oh, look, Russians are now getting murked by this Ukrainian that has a beard and looks like Chris. That's Chris. Chris is operational now. And it happened so fast that I like woke up one day and like my face was on like YouTube pages with multi-million like followers that they're talking about like who is this Chris Naganuma? And I was like, oh shit, like what is going on?
Well, shit, he's our own Chris Kyle.
Oh, dude, I was like, this is not good. This is like not good. And I kept it from my wife until I came back from Ukraine because I didn't want to bring any of this up while I was like in country. And it was like, I remember one morning I was like, hey, so you're probably not going to be happy about this. But I started getting enough traction that I had to like get ahead of it. And so like I had to do a whole interview with SOFREP. So if you type my name and you put in SOFREP behind it, you'll see the whole article comes up. But they're aggressive. They have a huge following, man. And it's not so much that they put out that information, right, that is like that it's not true, but it's more the fact that if you have an organization that does that and does it on a daily basis and continuously pumps false information about you, and if they've got tens of thousands of followers, well, it only takes one of those followers to be psycho, right, and start to like dig and start trying to find your home address and start really truly believing that what this page is saying is real. And that becomes an issue. And so I think that's what was more of a worry to me, was like one of these people truly like trying to track down like where my wife was going shopping and like where I was like living, and all based upon false allegations of what this page posted.
Well, you're still in Jamaica, right? That's where you're living.
Born and bred, baby.
Last night, last time I talked to you,
Yeah. I was just saying, did you give your wife like a sanitized statement where you're like, "All right, I'm going to tell you what happened. People don't like me," and that's
I told her straight up. I was like, "This is not good." I was like, "Here's the post." I'm like, "This," like I was like straight up, like, "You need to know what's going on because you're going to be angry."
Yeah, you think people are making up stories about you? Wait till you hear this shit.
Yeah, so we know we worked through it, and she knows what I do, and she's in support of it. Our agreement is like I go over with one of these, and I don't go over with like a green book and a rocket launcher. There's a difference, I think, and I think also nowadays. I look at things where I'm like, there's one guy with an AK and a trench. Am I going to change, the war? No, probably not. But, a couple of pissed off vets that work in the defense industry and have connections and channels, we can change a whole lot if we're motivated and driven.
Well,
yeah,
so I was
you're
going to
still
ask you about
shooting
that.
people, to be fair. So
yeah, you are. Yeah, you're going to a photo shoot. That's
Yeah, Yeah,
That's what I'd say
just
too.
different now. Now it's 4K.
Yeah. So you got to be real specific when you're saying, "I'm just going to go over there to shoot a bunch of foreigners." You know, like, and I'll be
That's
home
it, man. Yeah, 100%.
But anyway,
he just looks like I just picture him with like a fanny pack and his camera.
Oh, dude, I was over with I had my little fanny pack with my little warm hand covers, and I had like a big jacket from Warm and Fuzzy, and like I was, you know,
big old fishing sombrero type.
It was winter too, you know, it's cold over there.
He's looking like he's at Disneyland.
Yeah,
I had a good time. You know, I think it's very scary over there, and there's definitely very much a war going on, but it's also very refreshing, I think.
Right.
You know, I have photography from a combat photojournalist that was with us when I was in Iraq in 2004, and I have it on my wall. His name is Michael Yan. He's a huge combat photojournalist, and I think that was one of the reasons why has always been on my mind. I remember back when, you know, seeing huge firefights, and this guy's like cool and collected in the middle of all this, and he's just like snap, 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 and just walking around, you know.
Hashtag YOLO.
Yeah, and you know, to me it was like, look at this crazy motherfucker.
Right.
It was, you know, here we are in all of this, and he's just bearing witness. And that was something that like stuck out to me forever. That, you know, Michael was prior special operations. And, you know, I think it always stuck out to me that an individual chooses to pick up a camera or a voice recorder and come back into harm's way and talk with these guys and share, you know, his livelihood with their area of threat. And he doesn't have a gun, you know, he's there with a camera. And to me, that was something that was like, I had a lot of respect for that, I think, as an infantry guy, and him choosing to come back and over and tell those stories. Cause I had never experienced that or seen that before. So to me, it was something that really stuck out. And I think why I wanted to kind of do something in that regard later in my life. I had such grand respect for it.
Well, I mean, it takes a special kind of person, you know. Like, I remember people used to make fun of some of the combat camera guys that we had, and I'm like, dude, they're just going over there.
It takes a special kind of stupid to sit there and go get shot at with nothing to shoot back at, you know?
Yeah, like, you know,
it's
I mean,
yeah.
I'm just saying.
I guess so. Yeah, you know, it's like
we call that bravery. You know, it's not stupid.
No,
he didn't mean that.
It's you know, I don't have to do this. Like, I'm definitely. What am I doing? But you know, I think I don't know. I do have a good time with it, and I love talking with people that are choosing service, and regardless of the uniform, you know, I think it's such an interesting thing to talk with these people that choose to defend their homeland or to pick up a weapon and fight. And like the same reason you asked to talk with me, but I have this immediate aspect with Ukraine where I can talk with these people. And especially when I went over there, I was able to talk with them on the same battle sections where they fought months earlier and interview them. Tell me, you know, in World War II or any of that happened. You know, it took 60 years or 40 years or whatever it was to go back to Normandy and sit on the beach and like talk with some of these old vets. You know, I've got interviews with guys that 4 months ago, they were hitting T-72s with rockets and grenade launchers. And it's like, man, tell me about your story. It's awesome.
That's pretty wild. Amazing. So when you talk to these guys, like, what are the similarities? Like, do they share a lot of like commonalities with like the American soldiers that you know, as far as like what drives them to do their service?
I think there's, you know, I've been able to interview a lot of Westerners that are over there fighting. So that's kind of a lot of interesting storytelling in regards to their means of why they're there. Right. And then you have a lot of individuals that I've spoken to that are Ukrainians that are also there, and, you know, they can't leave. But they fill different aspects and they do different things, whether it's teaching or instructing or fighting. So you have very different stories in regards to what they're doing and where they're at. And I think you have such a broad spectrum of guys from the Territorial Defense Force that are people coming in from around the whole entire world, from Japan and Norway and UK and Britain and United States, and they're all volunteering to come in and fight. And so those are very interesting stories because a lot of them have very specific reasons of why they're there compared to what the Ukrainians are fighting for.
That's what I was going to ask you earlier. So what would it take if someone wanted to go over there and fight? Like, I'm going to grab my gun, jump on a plane, see you in a couple hours? Like, there's got to be some
it used to
jump
be like
through, right? Like,
it used to be like that very early in the war. And that's when things were very kind of crazy and chaotic. And, Ukraine thought they were going to be gone in a week. You want to come fight and grab an AK, like in a rocket, like get on a fucking plane and come help. Like that type of mentality. I think today it's a lot. Things have changed a lot. You have what's called green booking, and guys usually are signing contracts for 1 or 3 years. Now Westerners are allowed to break their contracts and leave at any given time. They don't make money, and if they come into other organizations, the amount that they make is very small or minimal based on like an enlistment pay. Now, you usually start out in the TDF, the Territorial Defense Force, or the Legion. Those are like the Legion's kind of like your normal segue. But you can also get an invite from other units. And so if a gentleman goes into the Legion and starts his process joining the Legion, but then finds like an organization that says, well, hey, this guy has this skill set and we're inviting him into this unit and I have a sign-off chapter, you can definitely go and swap into a different unit. And a lot of Westerners tend to do that, especially if they have specialized skill sets and they know people over there and they're building these small teams.
Now you're talking about swap to a different unit, but with people that are already there, not like calling your buddy back home that has this skill set and bringing him out.
Yeah, totally. Oh yeah. Meaning like if you can call your buddy and be like, hey man, like if you want to come bang, come into the Legion, come do this. I will then, as you start your in-doc process, I'll talk to my leadership and I'll get a paper. There's a whole process for this. Right. And you'll get an invite. And then as you start going to your in-doc, you can then get pulled to that other unit. So it's very fluid the way things kind of work. And you see a lot of Westerners tend to build their own, I guess you could call it like specialty teams sometimes.
Right.
That work under different branches, and they end up supporting like the larger overall goal, or help sharing knowledge, or the way that we tend to war compared to how some of the Slavic mindset is with war.
Yeah. So now this is all foreign leadership though, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Anyway,
so back to
I got to bring this up. So
yeah, I mean, it all depends. Like there's a lot of Westerners over there, man. There's a lot.
Right. Yeah.
You were very right. You were very popular on the internet. I just did a quick Google search of you, and you're on trackamerc.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, they love me. Yeah.
And I was just like,
shout out to those guys.
I was like, hey, good for you, man. They got all sorts of pictures of you because I was going to throw. I was trying to. Yeah. I was like, I need to find a picture for the what do you call that? The like beginning of the show when I post it tomorrow. And I was like,
I've got a couple I can send you if you need anything. Also,
we'll just call it an album cover.
When's the
we'll call it an album cover because I don't really want the picture to say trackamerc.com on it. So
yeah, I got you.
They do got a real sexy photo of you though. I gotta say,
screen share it, homie.
You got no shirt. You got no shirt on. Your hat's backwards. You look pretty good.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
He's like, man, I wasn't even over there. I was at the
beach
with my family.
Me a couple times too. Like they said, I was like this company commander, and I was like, I've been like multiple promoted and flying through the ranks, and like now I'm over doing operational means in Ukraine, and I was like, fuck, dude, I was
commandeered a Russian jet and started killing everybody.
It says, "Will Chris stay longer?" is yet to be seen. Thanks to our follower, point out this news.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna make a comic book of you.
Dude.
And then it says, is American Chris Naganuma connected to Nazar? I can't pronounce any of that, but and Arthur Bortnichuk and the recent war
Those were
crime.
the individuals, that ended up shooting the Russian team surrendering.
Oh shit! You're part of the Makiva gang.
Yep. Apparently,
Son of a bitch.
I know. So who would know that a beard would take you this far? Like
Makiva.
that's what it all was. The beard and my fog hat. It took me way further than I ever expected. But
Bro, I'm not gonna lie. I think they have a picture of you photoshopped on this guy.
I'm not sure.
The face looks really, really bright compared to the rest of the photo. Like everything's really dark, and then it's just your face that's bright as can be.
Yeah, well, it was a problem for a couple months.
Jesus Christ. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing so hard. It's just so funny.
Hey man, I just kind of chalk it up as like it comes with the gig, and the amount of death threats that I got and for like my Facebook page and my Instagram and it was a consistent roll of death threats, and I'm going to track you down. I'm going to find your wife. Like, I'm going to find where you live. Why did you murder these people? I still have a bunch of them in my Facebook that I hang on to just so I remember it. And that's where I'm saying, like, it's not necessarily the fact that I was worried that they were posting this stuff, because I know it wasn't true, but it's the fact that,
right,
they have a large following, and some of these people in this war is very emotional, man. So
absolutely,
to some of these guys, like, it only takes one person to be like, oh, let me track up and try and figure out certain things about him, and let me go drive by his house with a gun, or and that stuff that's where the internet is the dark side of it, right? And it can go down a very scary side very quickly.
So that's why OPSEC is very important.
And it's not harder to do that.
Well, yeah, I can imagine.
Geographical location, geolocating, anything that you take with a photo can be tracked down to where you are.
See, a lot of people don't know that, and I've been trying to explain this to some of my family members. I'm like, don't be taking pictures. You need to turn all those settings off in your all the settings on your phone and shit, because it's really easy to figure out where the hell you're at, and just having your name and then where you're at, it takes nothing for people to actually find out where you live and who you really are.
Right. And that was very important while we were in country. Like we would make sure that anything that we were doing, it's always posted days after from when we're in that area.
Right.
Because it can be very quickly associated to someone tracking you to, like, oh, I know that restaurant, just based off of using the internet, the photograph of what you've posted, and figuring out exactly where that location is and sending someone with something to hurt you.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to name any names or anything, but there was a specific service member, and some people were talking about him, like, well, we can't tell you where he's at. And other buddy was like, well, he was at this location about 2 hours ago. And I'm like, how the fuck do you know that? I'm like, it's on Snapchat maps.
Yeah.
Like, well, tell him to fucking turn that off.
People, it's very easy nowadays. And, it's technology is scary. It's advanced quickly. And something like that becomes a big problem. And like I quickly was like trying to scrub my whole entire family. Like,
oh yeah,
there's organizations that you can go onto their websites and they'll help take all your addresses off of like spam websites and things like that. So I spent a good amount of time doing that, because you just never know. People are weird nowadays.
Yep.
God, I hope I just tagged you in the right fucking thing. Project Leaflet, right?
Yeah, that's Project Leaflet's me. Yeah, and then I've got a personal page, and I've got a couple pages, but Project Leaflet.
I don't have your personal page. I was just like, yeah, I'll tag him in this real quick because I got a picture of this, like, pimp the show. So
yeah,
I was like, we're just gonna do a quick little do because sometimes I forget to do that. So you had all that going. I love this shit. I'm trying still not to laugh about this fucking little tab I got opened up, but Yeah, that was crazy. Anyways, we were talking before the show started about just kind of the difference between, how it is over there and how like people here don't understand it, how blessed we do have it. And I'd love to just have you elaborate on that again, because it was a beautiful point and it made me think.
I think right now there's such a break in the way that the generations and people view America, service, and what happens in the general world. And we think about military people and what's going on with death, and we were in Iraq and Afghanistan for 2 decades, and we lost about 9,000 people. But the TBI and the PTSD has been astronomically large throughout that. And a lot of these people that are in Ukraine or in Iraq or in Afghanistan also, we don't have to worry about IEDs or roadside bombs when we drive down and go get milk. Or we don't have to worry about Shahed drones that are flying through the air. And, if you hear it, you need to watch it, because as soon as the engine stops, it's going to drop and impact a warhead on you. Right. And, those are daily occurrences that are in some of these countries. And I think it's we're just very blessed to be Americans, to even be born here, and have the ability to be upset about my opinion, where these people around the globe have such different stresses that we just don't even have, that doesn't even come into our mindset. And it's just such a different environment, I think, when you think about that and you see it and you feel it firsthand.
Yeah, I think regular people, Americans, they don't realize how privileged they are, like you said, just to have been born Americans.
Just to be born here.
Yeah.
You have the right to be pissed about your fucking hair color and your sexual orientation. That's a privilege. The fact that you have that's a privilege.
People losing their shit when their Wi-Fi goes out because of a storm, and the Wi-Fi is down for 30 minutes and they lose their shit.
That's me. That's
a fairly
that's me being
thing.
pissed off at TJ because his internet went out because he had a fucking tornado hit his house. I'm like, listen here, bitch, we got a show to run.
I was like, well, let me go to my neighbor's house, and borrow his computer and internet, because mine's in Kansas now, apparently.
I was pissed off at him about it.
No, it didn't like him. That's a long story, but whatever. It's not what this is about.
First world problems, I love it. But
yeah, right.
But no,
I think that's a big change.
You put it into kind of perspective that I had never thought about. And you were saying we had 9,000 die. And then you look at Russia, who was there prior to, and, Afghan. And you were saying they had 14,000 or 15,000?
About 15,000 in their 10 years in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And now you look at the Iraq-Russia war, you're talking about, we're a year in, and there's hundreds of thousands that are dead.
So what you're talking about there, it was it's almost double the casualties in half the time.
Yeah, I think that's something that people are. It's very easy for people to not understand about how much death is happening in these countries, right? Again, we were in Iraq and Afghanistan, 2 huge conflicts that we were in the entire country working a global war on terror, very heavily invested in these countries, and we only ended up losing around 9,000 individuals. Russia was doing a hell of a strong push in the 80s through Afghanistan, trying to control that entire country. They lost around 15,000. And now you're seeing this huge peer-to-peer conflict that's going on inside of Ukraine. I never expected to see this level of warfare on a European country, ever in my entire life again. I thought that was done. Yeah, but here we are, this is true war. No one controls the air. It's artillery bombardment that you have never experienced. The UK and the US cannot even manufacture enough ammo compared to what these guys are shooting. And you are expecting these guys to roll into certain areas where their deployment cycle is 1 week to 4 weeks. And then they pull back so that they can actually cycle in more people. I went to Mosul and was there for a year. That's just the way that we work. These guys roll into a deployment area and stay for a little bit because it's a fucking aggressive area. And I just don't think people understand that it's tens of thousands that die on the monthly basis. It's hundreds of thousands that are dying throughout these throughout these years that roll on. I just don't think people want to truly understand what happens over there, why we're involved in it, and the effect that it's going to have on generations to come once this war ends for TBI, PTSD, for both of those countries over there and the men involved. It's going to be
because we're dealing with it on like a small scale comparatively.
this.
Yeah, we think that our system
in
sucks.
A micro scale.
They don't even have a system set for it.
No, neither one of those countries have ever focused on it, in any regard. But think about it. I went to Iraq in 2004, and TBI, traumatic brain injury, was not a focus or even really a talking point. It was not a thing. Everything was post-traumatic stress disorder. You got headaches, you got this, you got that, PTSD. We didn't ever talk about blast mitigation and your brain bouncing around in your skull. And I think we're dealing with it on such a micro scale, and we're up to like 25 vets a day killing themselves still on mental health and issues. The shit that these guys are going to deal with after this conflict, I don't even know how to put it into words.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great thing. It's a great question to ask. I mean, it's like, what do we do? And I don't think there's an answer. And because the problem we're seeing with PTSD is that there's no like physical, we can't just look at it and fix it. So when we can figure out what I kind of, I guess not like, but what I like about the idea of a TBI is that we can sit there and maybe find something to fix it eventually. We're not close now because we don't know how it works. We don't really know, we're still working on how the brain works, how everything happens there. But if there's something physical, we can physically do something about it. With PTSD and with like mental health, you sit there and it's like, we just got to talk about it. I mean, we got to figure out ways to get you over it. But
I think to that point, you're seeing, and I think this is where you'll see a shift with the Westerners that are over there also doing support and training and talking with these guys. The GWAT guys are a lot more open, I think, in regards to talking about it. And
I think so too.
Being expressive in regards to, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, and I need to talk about that with someone to get help, and I need to express that problem with guys that now are coming after me, so that they're not dealing with the same issue, or that they're maybe aware of these issues that may arise. And that wasn't something that was normal for a long time. It was always shut the fuck up and truck on, like put your ruck on and keep moving.
Yeah, quit being a bitch.
Exactly.
Yeah, man. And look at World War II, man. Yeah, I mean, look at World War II. You got home, you just were overseas in one of the worst, probably one of the worst, areas of war that we've seen in a long time. And those guys got home and they're just like, you better continue on life, start your farm, do your thing, and get over it. Because we don't have shit for you to do.
And I think that's what's going to happen with these guys over there is they're experiencing that same level of bombardment and that same level of warfare. It's not, I've never once in my experience had to deal with an Iraqi pumping 152 GPS guided munition back my way. It was never, that's not it, right? Like I don't have to deal with a KA-52 attack helicopter shooting wire guided rockets at me, and none of that was ever like something I have to deal with. But these guys deal with it on a daily basis of a level of astronomical war that, you would only think is like, oh, Hollywood makes that nowadays. But it's fucking happening now. And like, it's the largest counteroffensive that the world has ever put on. We're watching Ukraine do right now with the largest armor push ever since the world wars. And it's like, no one talks about it. It doesn't make TV. No one gives a flying fuck. And to me, it's crazy because of this is history that we're watching happen right now. And these guys are going to deal with it heavily after it finally comes to an end.
Right.
Well, it's pretty
And I
like
think,
hot and heavy on TikTok for like a month, and then they shut that down.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
there's a lot
yeah,
of political
Yeah, they don't want the coverage of it.
shit. They don't want, that hurts political parties.
Censorship.
And yeah, there's a lot of censorship happening. And
I
I
think
was going to make my little stab at the U.S. government real quick. You were like, we don't have to deal with them with having like high tech equipment. Well, you might now, courtesy of leaving every fucking thing we have there. So, just my little
yeah.
stab at
There's,
them.
I think, I get a lot of, I think negativity sometimes about that on like things that I post about just governmental support and like, oh, they're corrupt and all that. And to be honest, I just don't give a fuck, because you could say that
Right.
about almost every government. Every government
Right.
is shit. Every leader is garbage. They all have their own agendas.
Right.
But people still have a right to exist. And
Right. Exactly.
to me, the man on the ground, which is a guy in the trench with the rifle, that's someone that to me is more important. So his livelihood and the way that he understands how to fight, that's kind of important to me. I don't give a fuck about the political aspect of it too much.
Yeah, me either. That's
Right.
how we are too. And you're kind of talking about how like the government's corrupt, and we've had some like truck drivers and shit come through our town and shit, and they were talking about, they're like, yeah, we came over here from Ukraine, blah blah blah, and they were like, our government's corrupt, and we were like, what makes you think ours isn't?
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, like we're just like, it's not better anywhere you go, really. I mean, maybe
We've been around for a longer
maybe
amount of time. We've done things, I think, a bit more structured nowadays.
yeah, but like
But
it's still corrupt. You know what I mean?
there's
Like,
still a lot of bad shit that happens here. Our government's
yeah,
not great.
yeah, we're not going to hear about it. They don't want that shit on the news. Like that's.
No, I
we're
mean,
just
remember
better.
2 years ago,
We're
we
just better at covering the shit up.
not getting a flu shot, and like
Yeah.
took people out of
Yeah.
military service. Like our government does weird things as well. So
Yeah, it's like
I don't know.
the corruptness. It goes everywhere. It spans everywhere. We're just better at not letting it leak out as much, I think.
I think
I think we do a pretty good job. But we don't talk politics here, so we'll step away from that one. This is why we don't talk politics. We're gonna get our asses bound up. We're gonna get kicked off TikTok, or not TikTok. We're gonna get kicked off podcasting again because we fucking talked about it. That happened the second day of our first podcast. It was great.
Yeah. Good times.
Good times. But no, man. So we've kind of covered a lot of shit, and we've gotten the opportunity to get like some very unique perspectives. You got anything else you want to throw out there?
that's really it. I think for me, it's just I try and like bring as much knowledge forward to people that follow our page, and like just kind of tell them maybe things that aren't being seen on the news, and just trying to bring the warfighter's perspective and the ground perspective from both sides of the war, and allow people to see it like uncut and unfiltered, and ask questions. And I think that's something that's important for people to see, and to come in to chat with us, and kind of understand what's happening in Ukraine and why we're so invested in it, and what's going to happen to these warfighters after it.
Hell yeah, man. So where can people find you, like on all your social medias and everything?
Yeah, so we're on predominantly most meta platforms right now. We're on Instagram on Project Leaflet. We do a one-on-one interview page that's called the Daily Leaflet. That's on Instagram as well. And then we have a link tree on both of those pages that will take you to our Telegram. It'll take you to our threads. And those are predominantly where we're focused right now. And then we're hoping to expand into a podcast in the near future, where we'll be able to follow and track these fighters and sit down and talk with them and talk about mental health and talk about their experiences. But right now we're on social media of Instagram predominantly.
I love that. And you can find Chris at trackandmerc.com. So be sure to,
yeah, got some real good photos on there.
Yeah, they got some sexy photos. So if you want to see sexy photos of Chris, hit him up there. I don't think he'll follow you there, but damn, he looks good there. Let me tell you, I'm very impressed. So we usually wrap up the show and we ask, what did you take from the show today? And we'll start with you, Chris, if you don't mind. This is just kind of the thing we do, and if you took anything from the show, let us know.
You know, I think for me, just I enjoy getting on podcasts because it allows me to talk with people that I've never met before, and I think that's always something that's very exciting. And so I love jumping on and talking with people and sharing stories. And you know, for me, I just thank you for your time and like being able to share this, and it's such a good experience because I think if we don't talk more about mental health and talk about experiences and what's going on in the world, then you know, nothing changes. So for me, thank you for what you guys do, just, you know, creating a podcast and actually expanding on that topic.
Well, we're glad to do it, man. And I hope that this was a good experience for you, because we've had a hell of a time. I've had a blast. I know TJ always does, as he sits over there just shitty and grin. TJ, what'd you take from the show? And give us your little wrap-up spiel.
Yeah, man. So I think it is important, like everything that you're doing, especially going over there and just reporting on like what's actually happening, and not that way people can see like the real shit and not just what's portrayed in the media. And it's kind of actually it's kind of hard to find a whole lot of it being covered at all anymore, because I feel like it's getting covered up. But so you know, thank you for that, and I think that takes a lot of that means something out of the like the character that you have for you to go and do that. You know what I'm saying? I think we need more people like that. So that's what I took from it, man. And again, thank you for everything that you do. And but like I always say to wrap the show up, you know, just don't be a cocksucker. If your buddy's reaching out to you and they're having issues, fucking listen to them. You know, because it takes a lot for someone to reach out and actually put themselves out there and let you know that they're struggling, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do notice a significant change in the way people are acting, like if they're usually posting dank ass memes and you haven't seen any dank ass memes in a minute, you might just hit them up and be like, hey man, how's things going? Like, everything all right? Because you never know, it might make a difference.
Exactly. For me, what I took from the show tonight, there's a lot going on in the world. We have a lot going on at home, and we don't think about it. And we are very blessed to be where we are from and where we're at. And we're very blessed to have people like you, Chris, out there with that special kind of stupid to sit there and go over and take photos and talk to these people and help these people. And I mean, to say I'm inspired is an understatement. I mean, it really is. It's inspiring, and it's an amazing thing that you're doing. So I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough for your time tonight. I can't thank you enough for what you do. That being said, if you want to stick around and bullshit for a little bit after this, we got time. But we'll wrap up the show. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Tiki-Taki, everything. You can find our podcast on Spotify. We're big on YouTube. That's where this will be posted first, I imagine. We're on Spotify. We're where you listen to podcasts. So be sure to check us out, like, review, give us a subscribe and whatnot. If you do got a chance, write something nice about us. And if you don't got nothing nice to say, do what your mama said and don't post anything at all, dickhead. So that being said, have a good night, guys. Love y'all.
Yeah, we used to be on Pornhub until they kicked off all the amateurs.
That makes sense.